days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room there on Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. Fort Bliss is the largest military base along the border, right there bordering Juárez, Mexico, which is in the state of Chihuahua, Mexico, which is really important for everyone to know because things are getting really shaken up in Chihuahua, Mexico. That is very connected to the El Paso cartel, right there in the good old USA. And it is a big problem with the rogue operations and the unauthorized operations that have been terrorizing both countries. Today is May 15th, 2026. We are just uh, just burning the midnight oil. Of course, because President Trump is nonstop. He's in Beijing, he's in China, and he is making a lot of deals. And he didn't just go to China um, without preparation, right? And the preparation, when you look it up, is about stopping the precursors for fentanyl, um, the weapon of mass destruction, right? He designated fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, which it is. And so he's not just going to designate it, he's going to act upon it. And the largest supplier of precursors, uh, exportation, the for exportation, is China, and they export those precursor chemicals to Mexico. And it's in that pipeline, that Jeffrey Epstein pipeline I've been talking about for so long and putting up all the maps. It's really important for everyone to know the massive amount of money that is involved in this. And so, for President Trump to shut off the supply of these precursors is to shut off a big portion of the lab. I mean, what good does a lab do in the Sierra in Mexico when you have no precursors to make anything? It's like a kitchen without any ingredients. What good does a kitchen do, right? So, this is a huge development, and we just post up the receipts for it, right? The receipts and the um, for everyone to look at, so that they could read the sources themselves. Um, this is a big reason why Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room there on Fort Bliss and taken down to the arms room where there was a rogue operation in his chain of command to silence him, to take his life, and then to steal his body off of Fort Bliss in a rogue operation, meaning that they had people in place like DES Thomas Kane, like Major General Clem Coward, like First Sergeants, like CID Tavita Nusa, um, and on, Solomon Anusa in the mortuary operations. They had people in place, the know-how and everything to steal his body off of Fort Bliss and traffic it to Juarez, Mexico. And lo and behold, there is a funeral home fraud, Plenitude Crematorium operation that was huge, all huge, and engaged in the worst type of flesh peddling. Over 400 bodies in one discovery, um, and the bodies being those many families that were given construction material, fake ashes in urns. Um, and of course, many of those bodies, victims, in the pictures, you see evidence of torture, evidence of organ harvesting, evidence of uniforms, and I believe there's evidence there of baby harvesting because we have La Diabla, and she's absolutely part of this funeral home fraud for disposal of bodies. And this is, she's CJNG cartel, and they are absolutely flesh peddlers and worse than that. And so they absolutely had the cartel in place on both sides of the border and on Fort Bliss to carry out this rogue operation. And so we posted up about rogue operations and unauthorized operations because that is what is being investigated right now on both sides of the border. Because of recently, it was brought to the attention of federal government officials because two CIA agents were killed in a unauthorized rogue operation in Chihuahua, Mexico. And it really wasn't to shut down that lab because the evidence now coming out of the investigation proves and confirms that they weren't interested in shutting down the lab, of confiscating the drugs. They weren't interested in that. It seemed to be some other kind of rogue operation, up to no good. And it was leaked. It was leaked to uh, competing or, yeah, uh, other cartels and the CIA agents, two of them. There were four that we are told, two CIA agents and two AEI agents, which is like CIA agents for Mexico, I guess, for Chihuahua, and they were ambushed, and it wasn't like an easy ambush, it was a very violent ambush, because the damage of the vehicle is so severe. And I have a picture of it, and I did post it again, like I said I was going to do, and I think it's really important. Yeah, let me turn this on here. See if I can. So here it is. Here's the vehicle. I mean, it is totally charred. Now, these vehicles, and I really I talked a little bit about this last night. Um, and this is, of course, one of the CIA agents. This is John Black here. Um, he was a former U.S. Marine captain. And he died in this fiery, I mean, it's just crazy. Um, this here. This vehicle, most likely are reports that we've been getting, and we've been getting very good reports because we were the ones that were telling everybody that this was an ambush, right? That this was an ambush. This was not an accident, because what was being reported was that it was an accident. And we were like, no, our sources say it's CIA agents that were ambushed. um, Let me make sure that I'm on. Yeah, there we go. So I can see comments. Um, so we've been saying that, and now it has been confirmed that it was an ambush. And I want to tell you why we knew it was an ambush and why we believed our sources that it was an ambush. Because, we have, our family has over 100 years of military um, uh, uh, service, and my husband, Richard's father, was a PA for most of his 30 years in the military. And he, of course, had many deployments. And you have, from the first Gulf War, Operation, um, oh, Shield, and then, oh, anyway, it's been so long ago. But when the first wars broke out, so many soldiers would get killed and injured terribly because the vehicles weren't protected. And that was, in the 90s. And as, time went on and the war went on and then it expanded into Afghanistan, the vehicles were then reinforced, right? They were reinforced, they were protected, and they had also safety measures on them so that they wouldn't explode, right? That the fuel would be cut off if there was something that happened, and then inside the vehicle you would have a fire extinguisher and everything. Well, this is the case with this vehicle. This vehicle most likely was a suburban, reinforced, gas tank, electronic safety measures put on it to uh, uh, unplug or disconnect the fuel when something like this happens, a rollover or whatever. The belts lock in or something like this, and then they have fire extinguishers in these vehicles, and this was all relayed to us. And that absolutely we knew from, well, my husband knew from his experiences, because he had to take care of soldiers that were in bad shape because of vehicles that weren't as protected. So, and that was many, many years ago. We have 2026 now. They're all, when you're doing these kinds of operations, you have the best of the best vehicle, and they are reinforced in every which way and have these electronic safety measures on them in every which way. And I wish I knew cars better to explain it to you better, but I think that really tells you that we knew that this was an ambush, because if it's an accident, it would never burn up like that. And they would have a fire extinguisher, and the other CIA agents would be able to render aid to them, but they were under fire. I bet you they can find a lot of bullets in that vehicle. Um, the other thing too is that the CIA agents that lived through this with the team, it has been confirmed that they tried to hide the bodies. Right? They knew that this was a rogue operation, an unauthorized operation, and I want to call it both a rogue and an unauthorized operation. Um, and they had no intention of, you know, uh, raiding the lab. So, was it a photo op? I don't know. Was it some other operation? I don't know. But all of their actions that have been released from the investigation so far confirm that they were not interested um, in confiscating drugs and closing down the lab. So that is, maybe they didn't want to close it down because President Trump has been dealing already with China and turning off the spigot of the precursors. And I did list the two drugs that I read in the source. I'm not going to try to say them, but there are two chemicals that they use as ingredients to make this drugs, and that has been really, that whole supply chain has been really damaged. Um, are they going to try to sneak? There's so much money involved that there's going to have to be a lot of oversight. Of course, we're not ignorant that they say, "Oh, we cut it off and that's it." No, there has to be something else involved to keep them from going back on their word. So I think that's why there's a lot of economic deals going on. I know Boeing absolutely got some deals today, I heard, for many airplanes, which is great news. Um, because there is something called the economy. We need jobs, we need an economy to be flowing, and we need to replace the illicit economy, the economy of billions of dollars of drug trafficking, of child trafficking, all the porn, all the weapons trafficking, all the really low, dirty, terrorizing economy. We got to replace it with something better, right? With something legitimate, with something beautiful, with something that makes the world a better place instead of something that terrorizes the world. So I think that this whole China trip is very, very interesting to watch, and I know that because we have experience as a family there in Beijing, so it's in we're very um, cautious. We're very cautious of what's going to come out of this. But at the same time, we know that President Trump's eye is on the border. He might be in China, but his eyes are on that border, that El Paso, that U.S. Mexican border, okay? Because of all the news that we're getting. So let me read here. I've got my mom put more attention on your case because the El Paso cartel wage war on the Q military patriots worldwide. Oh, well, the El Paso cartel, they're hurting because President Trump has turned off the spigot, turned it down at least. We don't know who bad actors are that, want to fight it. But of the fuel theft was a big part of this. And also, of course, the precursors for the drugs, and of course, closing down the borders so that the human trafficking is turned off, and the fraud that goes along with it. They want the human trafficking, the illegal migrants, because they want to exploit them. There's a lot of money in the exploitation of illegal migrants, and that's why they need to not participate in it. They need to go back home and apply legally to come into the country because there is a very professional group that really knows how to exploit these illegal migrants. So that's, yeah, they're hurting right now because all of that. Look, you have Veronica Escobar sending her man. This happened just not too long ago. But Benito Torres, who uh, is the one that would not allow us to have a congressional in our son's case, right? But Benito Torres was impersonating a lawyer at the ICE, right? At the ICE on Fort Bliss at the detention center, and trying to give these detainees cell phones, which is a contraband. They're not allowed to have that because it could turn the detention center into a cartel operating zone, right? Cartel headquarters, operations headquarters. And so he was caught doing that, and that's what they're relegated to because they used to have real lawyers that would do that, right? But now they're so desperate, they're committing more crimes and more crimes. Uh, you know, and and being exposed and being exposed. So I did put up. So this car, don't you all agree that this is absolutely an ambush? And of course, the authorities have confirmed that we're right. It is an ambush. Um, yeah, it's really something. So, um, let's go through what I've posted. I think it's a good example, good talking points of everything that's going on. Um, so I did talk about China and President Trump having a lot of agreements before he even went over there. And they did arrest seven, I think seven, um, five US and two Chinese before he went that were involved in. Um, trafficking these precursors. So I think it was in Florida and um, Nevada and also in China. They had their contacts. So I think that's really, really important for people to understand that he is really working hard to shut down the whole, fentanyl um, uh, pipeline. Exactly. The other thing I posted up was, what's the difference between a rogue and unauthorized operations? Because what happened to Richard, our son, was absolutely a rogue and also an unauthorized operation. Um, just, of course, the murder and the cover up and everything. The, um, the whole search for Richard, when they knew that Richard had been murdered and they were covering up the murder, they covered up the murder um, with really, you know, all these taxpayer funds going to a search, right? Um, Really interesting, the meetings and everything like that. Um, Very rogue, very unauthorized. We went to so many meetings and um, bringing in 15 plus agencies. And I'm going to have to really uh, study all of the rogue and unauthorized um, operations that they did in our son's case and the amount of money that was fraud, waste, and abuse, right? Uh, so the Walmart mass shooting absolutely was a rogue operation. And we know that the military was involved in it, you know. We know that Richard was reporting on how the military was involved in it. And we know that it was bloody and we know that it was orchestrated. We know that it was staged. And we know, with Michael Mayella still being in the FBI, working in the FBI field office there, you have John Briggs deleting evidence. So we know that this was absolutely a rogue operation, and that's was targeting President Trump. Okay, and think about it. This was a bloody operation, but it was an operation. And the same thing with the CIA agents, that, two CIA, two AEI agents lost their lives. In Richard's operation, of course, he brutally lost his life. Um, we're talking about taking people's lives in these rogue and unauthorized operations. Um, the taking of Almayo Zapata, the rendition of him, the kidnapping rendition. They call it legally, they call it the rendition flight of Almayo Zapata. That was absolutely a rogue operation. by a plane in El Paso, who has a plane that can do that, and then to tamper with the tail number, to tamper with the logs. We know that the pilot didn't even have a license. Um, we know that it was really a kidnapping. There was no extradition paperwork to bring him into the United States. And then the El Paso FBI arrested him without any extradition paperwork. That is just uh, so rogue, right? That's so rogue. And so today, or maybe it was yesterday, um, President Scheinbaum, the Mexican President Scheinbaum, said that Ruben Rocha would not be extradited like El Mayo. Okay. That means and that, people can say, oh, he's not going to be extradited. No, no, no. Like El Mayo, meaning that Ruben Rocha, when he's extradited, it will be with extradition paperwork, not by a rogue operation. So if you know all of this, you can kind of read what they're saying better. You can read what they're saying better. And she will not be lying when Ruben Rocha, and our information is that he was already flown somewhere, right, with the military. So he might already be prepared to be extradited. But the point is that if people come back and say, I thought you said he wouldn't be extradited. And she's like, no, extradited like El Mayo without any extradition paperwork. We weren't going to do that. We are going to do it legally. Um, so they must have absolutely told her a lot of evidence, because she was not going to give him up unless they gave evidence. The same thing with the Maru Campos, this investigation going after her. Of course, she's the PAN party, she's the opposition party to the Morenas. So, she is absolutely full investigation right now after Maru Campos, rightfully so, because she has absolutely engaged in treasonous um, activities, and these rogue and unauthorized activities absolutely are treasonous. Um, Depending on when you're looking at what they were doing, with giving access to the cartel to computer intelligence databases, so that they can look at federal cases, who are the whistleblowers, who are the agents on there, what are the dates, give them all information so that they can tamper in the case, they can tamper with the evidence, they can delete evidence, they can delete files, and tamper. And we know that they've tampered with Richard's case like that. And so, yeah, to understand the rogue and unauthorized operations and the breaches of national security, that can absolutely be treason, is very important. And what she did was absolutely treason. It's an affront to both Mexico and U.S. national security. So, um, a very, very big deal to know the difference between these. And, I'm on the same learning curve that everyone else is on. We're just working very hard to understand um, what's going on. But the Walmart mass shooting, El Mayo, Richard's case, the CIA that ended up in an ambush, that those are all rogue, unauthorized, um, terrible, terrible operations. Okay. President Trump also launches a new unit that's dedicated in deporting green card holders. Now, that might make a lot of green card holders nervous only if you are participating in rogue and unauthorized operations, right? So if you are a hardworking green card holder, law abiding, you don't have anything to worry about. But if you are engaged in rogue and unauthorized operations, I think you have a little bit to worry about with the green card. So, because we know that there was infiltration, right? And this seems a little, oh gosh, a little extreme, but this is really the way that we are being terrorized. Um, we cannot be soft on crime. We have to address this, and so he is, and I I know this could be weaponized, but they're already weaponized against us. They are absolutely already weaponized against us. Um, so Cesar Duarte confirmed to be in El Paso. He was the Pan Party, Maru Campos's attorney general, the main guy. The North Zone attorney general also has a house and car and unexplained wealth. His name is Carlos Manuel Salas, and both of them tampered and interfered with our son's murder case. So, he is really to me, and I'll show you the picture I made of. Oh my gosh, it's just like he is such a monster and such a traitor, and I just have to speak the truth because he is. The What we talk about, what he did, is just a tip of the iceberg. He did so many bad things, and now this monster and traitor is being allowed in the United States. I mean, really? What did he do? Sneak through a tunnel? He knows about the tunnels or something? Um, yeah, it's so terrible. He's really a monster and a traitor. Um, I did post up about Richard's the letters that we received from President Trump again to try to just inform people that President Trump is absolutely involved in this case, and at the border, okay, and with President Scheinbaum. Just because he's in China does not mean that he is not fully engaged at the border. And I think that's very important for people to know that this is personal to him, because when you do this to a U.S. Army soldier, what they did to Richard, it really is an act of war against the country. And I did see that there was a comment like, why aren't people talking about this? Richard is the key. Richard is the key that um, unlocks a door that people don't want. There's a lot of people with money that don't want you to see what's behind it. And I think that we're getting close because the rogue and unauthorized operations, just defining them, right? We need to have those definitions, and the population needs to have the awareness of those definitions, and that that's happening. Rogue and unauthorized operations, you could call it mutiny. That's getting really, really close. There's just so many layers to this onion that needed to be peeled open for people to see, to understand, to get to the accountability, to get to the justice, to get to the negotiations for the repatriation of the remains of our son. So, that what's going on right now is huge. Absolutely, because what was going on against President Trump in so many ways, and Walmart mass shooting is a good example, are these rogue operations, and what happened to Richard. and even like the renovation of the crime scene. People don't understand how that can happen, but now I think through the rogue operations definition, people can understand that, just because they say they are, um, in the military or in the judicial system, doesn't mean that they are loyal. You have a lot of disloyal, treasonous people. And this case proves it. The Walmart case proves it. And I think people are starting to understand that now. So, I think, yes, I talked about Rocha already. And yeah, now let's see what people have to say on the chat. Trump should have brought Richard Halliday's remains home. Yes. Um, and I think that we are in the vicious negotiations for his remains. Okay. You have to remember that Cesar Haragui and Carlos Manuel Salas, they really interfered with all of this with Maru Campos. That's why we focus on them, because they were protecting the Arellano Quran's, the Rosa Maria Purchase Arellano Quran funeral home fraud. And that funeral home fraud includes La Diabla, where they were doing organ harvesting, y'all. They were doing organ harvesting. And where were these organs going? Who was getting these organs, right? And this involved, I mean, La Diabla's family was employed by Beto O'Rourke. This is a big part of the El Paso cartel. So, what is being uncovered here is so huge, and they are doing everything to interfere with uh, the return of Richard's remains. And their number one enemy in all of this is President Trump, because he is the one that's not on their side. He's the one that absolutely revealed the whole Plenitude crematorium, the funeral fraud, the unauthorized operations, he labeled fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction. He's the one that designated the cartels as terroristic organizations. He's the one that got 17 nations together to um, to fight the cartels, to put pressure on uh, the Mexican federal, to back the Mexican federal government up. Those that were, they might be compromised, they might be, going along to get along, they might be major parts of the cartel, but they didn't have anyone to back them up. Their lives were, they were getting shot in the head. People were getting shot in the head. If you were a politician, you had to have major protection, and they don't have the Second Amendment there. And so you have to hire these security teams. And I'm going to tell you, the Arellano Corrals were part of that security business, right? They were part of that, plus the funeral home, plus the restaurant business, plus oil and gas. I mean, so you couldn't even remember Delta One. His security team was part of the state police. And he was absolutely killed. We just had a politician's right hand man get killed in this governor's race. It's absolutely brutal there. And so to get 17 nations together as the shield of America to back up these politicians, to pressure. Um, and then not only that, but just think of over 100 extraditions already to the United States. And that's not including all the other cartel leaders that have been arrested. There has been just so much that has happened in this year and a half. Um, since President Trump has taken office. So much. Oh my gosh. And so he's really making headway against the cartel. And we have to help him because, the money behind the El Paso cartel is, they have a lot. They have a lot. And so they can control the media. They can control so many online operatives. Influencers and things like that want the ruination of our countries, not just the United States, but also Mexico. They just want this illicit trafficking and smuggling business to go on that made them rich. And President Trump is a real thorn in their side on that one. And now he's turning off the spigot of the ingredients, the precursor chemicals to make some of these drugs. So it is, um, you know, and no one is more impatient than we are. I mean, we've been doing this 2,111 days. We want our son's remains back. We want accountability. Um, but we are right there, investigating still, filing still. I mean, we filed some real doozers lately, epic. And so, um, and that is to a system that is broken, a broken system. But, a broken system still can work. It still can work. And justice is always in the hand of God, right? So our faith comes into play in this really, really well, because the system might not want to give justice, but oh well, justice is coming whether they want it or not, whether they do it or not, it's coming. They can't stop it. And we've been right about that. So where I feel God has wanted us to fight for Richard's remains. I feel that. And and it's a heartbreaking fight. Okay, it's a heartbreaking fight because new evidence comes out of what the indications of what they did to him. And it's difficult. It really is difficult. So we keep on fighting and keep filing. And uh, and Richard is the key. Richard opens up that door to things that they just don't want us to see. And so it is a vicious fight, and we're going to keep doing it. And we're very, very glad that there is an administration right now that is on our side. Clearly, he's on our side. And the paperwork shows it, the arrest shows it. I mean, you have Cesar Duarte in prison. You have Cesar Hargi running over to El Paso. Why? Because El Paso cartel is there, right? He feels protected by them because they control the Veronica Escobar. They control the justice and the DA, the TA, James Montoya. Um, they might be old buddies, right? So yeah, so that's where he's gonna go. And is he running from cartel? I don't know who he's running from. The Mexican media says he's running from cartel. He's afraid. He made a lot of promises. Now he can't keep them. And that is after, uh, you have a lot of the Arianos running too. El Paso. So, the United States is letting in these monsters. If you can't call Rosa Maria Purchase Oriano Quran a monster, then I don't know what is a monster. Absolutely monsters. And Maru Campos a monster. And I don't care how nice they look on and how good they talk on the media. They are absolute monsters because the evidence confirms it, that they are, and they need to be held accountable for what they did. Um, you're looking at 500,000 children trafficked. You're looking at 400 bodies in rat-infested, filthy conditions, while they're giving fake ashes to families and charging them for it. And they're holding on to these bodies, and what are they doing with them? Um, yeah, and then they're harvesting organs and targeting mothers to harvest their babies and harvest their organs. I mean, it's just huge. And the institutions in El Paso, um, all are probably getting looked at. I mean, uh, yeah, you had Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia's sons, both of them going to UTEP, and then saying that they don't speak English. Um, you have them admitting that there was a getaway car, that there were more shooters in the Walmart mass shooting, and yet they're lying under oath, and wanting victims' money when they're bad mouthing the United States, and the victims' money came from Americans that their heart went out to the victims of the Walmart mass shooting. Um, they're just exploiting the good nature of Americans and the giving nature of Americans. How dare they? How dare they? What monsters they are. They're just so um it's just a terrible, terrible thing. So yeah, I agree with you, and I think that that's what's happening. Placing the death penalty for all involved, even leadership, even those in the brass. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, the death penalty should be on the table. And I will tell you how I feel about it. I feel like I want the front row seat. That's how I feel about it. I want the front row seat when it happens. I'm praying that it happens. And I want it to be just, I want it to be legal. And I do want the death penalty for these monsters. And I never thought I'd ever say this in my life, but I want the front row seat because what they did, it's just so bad. And and I know that justice will be served and I'll have peace. Yeah. So placing let's see, Trump needs to do a press release about Richard. Yeah, and I think that that's coming. I think that is. I think that the letters that he sent us was a huge step, um, because there is so many infiltrators, right? So many leakers uh, in the administration, and you saw that while he's gone, while the cat's away, the mice will play, right? And they were leaking just yesterday. So there are people that are in the El Paso cartel in the administration. The administration is huge, huge, huge. Thousands of people, thousands and thousands of people, and in the military still. And so you have to really keep everything very, very tight, like you're playing poker. And so when the time is right, he will do a press release. Um, I mean, he did a huge press release by designating Richard as in the line of duty and sending the letters. And yet, what does the media do? The media doesn't cover that. The media doesn't cover that in those letters. Not one media called me and said, or called my husband and said, "What's in the letters?" And the letters absolutely confirmed that Richard was murdered on Fort Bliss, for being a whistleblower and for, in retaliation for that. And it all connects, all the other evidence together, it all connects, that he knew that the military was involved in the Walmart mass shooting orchestration, cover up, and everything. So, you know, where's the media? The media could be doing the press release, right? The media could be, where is task and purpose, right? They were very, um, they're very, and El Paso matters. They're very eager to put out fake news. Stars and Stripes very eager to smear Richard, to put out fake news. But what about now? When President Trump is confirming that what we said is right, and that he is worthy of the respect of every American. And yeah, where is the media? So, maybe I shouldn't have, uh, revealed how evil they are, but they are. They're evil, and President Trump is right that the media is absolutely in quid pro quo with the ones that do rogue and unauthorized operations. So, yeah, for no media outlets to cover the case means communism is here. Oh, well, they were trying, but because President Trump was elected means it's not here yet. Okay, it's not fully here now. Donald J. Trump bring Richard Halliday's remains home. Yes, absolutely. Um, yeah, our family were working very, very hard, and we're thanking everybody for your support and your sharing of this case. You know now why that's so important, right? The sharing of all of the information and all of our posts is so, so important, and we really appreciate it so much, because this needs to be truly a grassroots for the people, by the people, of the people. Um, uh, you know, drive to get justice for Richard and bring his remains home. So we thank you so much, and we love you for that. We love you for supporting us for this many years, and we're going to keep on. We're very close. I mean, we're just getting closer and closer, and I think people feel that. Um, so thank you so much. China means a lot. China's part of this, and China, of course, the gateway to China was through Iran, is through Iran. I think that's being totally renegotiated now. So that's all part of it, part of the whole pipeline that went right up to the border. So thank you so much. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing.